downfall. Linda was never the good witch. Gossip and spreading rumors will be your downfall. She threw her into the dead ditch. Jealousy makes you lose everything, that's the cost. How about you just stay in the land of the lost? Besties with the witch of the west. Hate on us, but you're still obsessed. Getting you to be the big bad villain, babe, go get a psychoanalysis. Because I know I'm one in a million, but it's fine, I'll be your protagonist. You're talking too much, we can all hear your whispers. Calling us wicked is a little insulting. You gave them to her, but you can keep the rest with first thoughts. Your word goes, girl, but that's just disgusting. You can call me the bad witch, but I'm not the snitch. So tell me which is which? Which is which? Which is which is which? Mirror on the wall, who's the saddest one of all? Glenda was never the good witch. Gossip and spreading rumors will be your downfall. She threw her into the dead ditch. Jealousy makes you lose everything, that's the cost. How about you just stay in the land of the lost? Besties with the witch of the west. Hate on us, but you're still obsessed. Hating me to be the big bad villain, babe, go get a psychoanalysis. Because I know I'm one in a million, but it's fine, I'll be your protagonist.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a world that often celebrates success, strength, and ambition, we find ourselves compelled to pursue greatness, to reach for the extraordinary. Yet, amidst the ceaseless strive for achievement, there lies a curious and often overlooked tension, the problem with simply being good. We are taught from a young age that goodness is a virtue, that being kind, considerate, and selfless is the noblest of human pursuits. And yet, as we traverse the landscapes of life, we come to discover that being good in and of itself may not always lead us to the fullness of what we are capable of becoming. Goodness, while inherently valuable, can sometimes lead to complacency, to a quiet resignation that is far from the boldness required to truly live. There is a quiet dilemma in being good enough to be admired, but not daring enough to transform the world around us. It is a subtle problem, one that often escapes notice until we find ourselves stagnant, our potential untapped, our dreams deferred. This is not to suggest that goodness is without worth, but rather that being merely good is not the end goal. We must grapple with the temptation to settle for the comfort of goodness, the safety of doing no wrong, and instead reach for something greater, something that asks of us not only our goodness, but our courage, creativity, and audacity. Tonight I invite you to reflect with me on the problem with being good, and how, in our pursuit of living rightly, we might inadvertently miss the higher callings that beckon us toward true greatness. Take goodness as a comfort zone. Goodness, by its very nature, provides a sense of moral satisfaction. We are told that if we are good, if we are kind, if we follow the rules, if we uphold decency, then we are fulfilling our purpose. And yet there is a subtle danger in resting too comfortably within the confines of this goodness. When being good becomes our only aim, it turns into a comfort zone, a place where we feel safe but do not challenge ourselves to grow. This kind of goodness can lead to a quiet life, a life that does not rock the boat or question the deeper issues of existence. It is easy to see how goodness can become a place of rest rather than a stepping stone to something greater. We may find ourselves doing what is expected, living according to the societal norms that define what it means to be a decent person. However, when we become too comfortable in this space, we run the risk of never questioning whether this is enough. Being good, after all, is not inherently wrong. It is, in fact, a virtue. But virtues, when they are not accompanied by action and purpose, can become stagnant. Goodness without ambition can leave us feeling unfulfilled, even if we are praised for our moral integrity. This comfort in goodness is one of the most insidious barriers to living a truly meaningful life. It convinces us that we are doing well enough, that our adherence to the rules is sufficient. and that we need not push ourselves beyond the borders of what is expected. Yet the reality is that growth often requires us to step out of our comfort zones, to embrace discomfort, and to challenge the very systems and structures that define what it means to be good. Without this willingness to go beyond, we risk becoming stagnant, our potential for greatness untapped. The paradox of goodness is that, while it is commendable, it can also become a prison. It can keep us from asking the hard questions about what more we might do, what greater heights we might reach, if only we dared to go beyond what is merely expected of us. In this way, goodness can be both a virtue and a limitation. The challenge, then, is to recognize when our goodness has become a place of comfort rather than a place of growth. Ultimately, goodness is not the final destination. It is the foundation upon which we must build lives of meaning, purpose, and transformation. If we allow ourselves to remain in the comfort zone of goodness, we may never reach the fullness of our potential. It is only when we are willing to step out of this comfort, to question whether being good is enough, that we can begin to move toward true greatness. The danger of mediocrity in goodness. The problem with goodness often lies in its subtle relationship with mediocrity. When we aim only to be good, we inadvertently set the bar low for ourselves. We define success not by the greatness we could achieve, but by the mere avoidance of wrongdoing. This mindset creates a culture of mediocrity, where doing just enough to be considered good becomes the standard. In such a state, we begin to confuse doing no harm with doing something of real value, and in this confusion, we allow mediocrity to thrive under the guise of goodness. Mediocrity, when coupled with goodness, can be deceptively dangerous. It masquerades as contentment, convincing us that we are living well, simply because we have not fallen into moral failure. But this form of living is not one of ambition or excellence, it is one of minimalism, where the avoidance of failure becomes more important than the pursuit of greatness. We often celebrate individuals who are good enough, those who do what is expected without ever reaching for more. This mediocrity, while socially acceptable, is a far cry from the lives of purpose and impact we are truly capable of living. The danger of mediocrity is that it lulls us into a false sense of accomplishment. We may feel that as long as we are not doing anything wrong, we are doing everything right. But life is not simply about avoiding mistakes. It is about striving for something greater, something that requires us to take risks and sometimes even to fail. Mediocrity, however, shuns risk. It prefers the safety of being good to the challenge of being exceptional. And in doing so, it robs us of the opportunity to grow, to stretch ourselves, and to contribute something of real value to the world. Moreover, mediocrity in goodness can prevent us from seeing the larger picture. It keeps us focused on the small, immediate actions of kindness and morality, while blinding us to the larger issues of injustice, inequality, and the need for systemic change. In this way, mediocrity is not just a personal problem, but a societal one. It encourages us to focus on individual acts of goodness without ever addressing the broader, more complex challenges that require boldness and courage. To combat the mediocrity that often accompanies goodness, we must be willing to raise our standards. We must recognize that being good is not enough if it does not lead to something greater. We must strive not just to be good people, but to be people who make a real difference in the world. This requires moving beyond mediocrity and embracing the discomfort and uncertainty that come with the pursuit of excellence. Only then can we begin to live lives that are not only good but truly great. From the moral trap of being nice. There is an unspoken expectation in many societies that to be good is to be nice. Niceness, with its emphasis on politeness, deference, and the avoidance of conflict, is often equated with moral goodness. But being nice and being good are not the same thing. Niceness, at its core, is about maintaining social harmony, often at the expense of truth, justice, and personal integrity. When we prioritize niceness over goodness, we fall into a moral trap. one that values the appearance of goodness over its substance. Niceness encourages us to avoid confrontation, to smooth over disagreements, and to maintain the status quo. While these may seem like positive traits, they can lead to moral compromise. When we are too concerned with being nice, we may fail to stand up for what is right, especially when doing so would cause discomfort or conflict. Niceness can make us passive in the face of injustice, choosing silence over speaking out, because we do not want to upset the balance of social niceties. In this way, niceness becomes a barrier to true moral action. The moral trap of niceness is particularly dangerous because it often goes unchallenged. Society rewards niceness with approval and praise, making it easy to believe that we are doing well simply because we are liked. But the pursuit of niceness can lead to a shallow form of goodness, one that is more concerned with being agreeable than with doing what is right. This is a subtle but significant distinction, and one that we must be careful not to overlook. True goodness, by contrast, sometimes requires us to be bold, to speak hard truths, and to challenge the status quo. It may make us unpopular, even disliked, but moral integrity demands that we do what is right, not what is easy. Niceness, while socially acceptable, often leads us away from this path. It encourages us to prioritize our own comfort and the comfort of others over the pursuit of justice, truth, and moral action. To avoid falling into the moral trap of niceness, we must be willing to embrace discomfort. We must recognize that being good may require us to make difficult choices, to engage in conflict, and to speak out when it would be easier to remain silent. True goodness is not about being nice, it is about doing what is right, even when it is hard. Only by recognizing this distinction can we avoid the shallow moralism of niceness and embrace the deeper call to live with integrity. The temptation to settle for moral minimalism. Moral minimalism is the belief that as long as we meet the bare minimum requirements of goodness, we have done enough. It is the mindset that asks, what is the least I can do to be considered good, rather than what more can I do to make a difference? This temptation to settle for moral minimalism is one of the most pervasive problems with being good. It encourages us to do just enough to maintain our moral reputation without ever challenging ourselves to go beyond what is expected. Moral minimalism is tempting because it allows us to feel good about ourselves without requiring us to make significant sacrifices or take meaningful risks. We may donate to charity, volunteer occasionally, or help a neighbor in need, but these acts, while commendable, may not require us to stretch ourselves in ways that lead to real growth or transformation. In this way, moral minimalism allows us to check off boxes of goodness without ever asking the deeper questions about how we might live more fully, more purposefully, and more sacrificially. One of the dangers of moral minimalism is that it can lead to a sense of complacency. We may feel that we are doing enough and therefore have no need to push ourselves further. This complacency can blind us to the larger issues at play in the world around us. It keeps us focused on small acts of goodness while ignoring the systemic injustices that require our attention and action. In this way, moral minimalism can become a form of avoidance, a way of shirking the greater responsibilities of living a truly moral life. Moreover, moral minimalism can prevent us from developing the kind of character that is required to make a lasting impact on the world. It encourages us to do the bare minimum, rather than striving for excellence. But true moral excellence requires more than just avoiding wrongdoing. It requires us to actively seek out opportunities to do good, to challenge ourselves to grow, and to take risks in the service of others. Moral minimalism, by contrast, asks only for what is easy and convenient. To overcome the temptation of moral minimalism, we must be willing to ask ourselves hard questions. Are we doing just enough to feel good about ourselves, or are we truly making a difference? Are we settling for the bare minimum, or are we pushing ourselves to go beyond what is expected? Only by challenging ourselves in this way can we move beyond moral minimalism and embrace the fullness of what it means to live a truly good life, and the importance of challenging the status quo. Being good often requires us to challenge the status quo. This is perhaps one of the most difficult aspects of living a moral life, as it demands that we go against the grain, question accepted norms, and stand up for what is right, even when it is unpopular. The problem with being good in this context is that it can sometimes
Morning kiss, soft and sweet, a new day's bliss. Midnight bliss, underneath the moon, soft kiss. Hold me tight, in the dark you're my guiding light. Can't resist, in your arms everything feels right. In every touch my heart ignites it new. My love, there's no more fight. You are a star in the world, you're the brightest spark, shining bright, illuminating every darkened night. In my heart, with you loves a work of art. All the night, in your embrace I take flight. In your light I find my way. Every moment I want to stay. Whisper close, soft secrets that only we know. Feel the glow, in your presence time moves slow. Touch my soul, your love's the fire that makes me whole. Let it shows, together let our true selves unfold. On her moon, every whisper all our story told. In your eyes, my heart's been sold. You are a star in the world, you're the brightest spark, shining bright, illuminating every darkened night. In my heart, with you love's a work of art. All the night, in your embrace I take flight. Oh baby, with you every day feels right. In your love I find my light. Stay with me, let's dance under the moonlit sea. Just be free, in your arms I find my plea. In your light I find strength, I find my might. I believe in this love we're meant to be. Ooh, in your light my dreams take flight. With you everything feels right. You are a star in the world, you're the brightest spark, shining bright, illuminating every darkened night. In my heart, with you love's a work of art. All the night, in your embrace I take flight. Heart, heart, no, together we shine so bright. In your love my heart's alight.
lead us to conform to societal expectations rather than challenge them. We may become so focused on fitting into the mold of goodness that we fail to question whether the status quo is truly just or moral. Challenging the status quo requires courage. It requires us to be willing to take risks, to face opposition, and to stand alone if necessary. This is no easy task, especially when the world around us rewards conformity and punishes those who dare to be different. But true goodness demands that we question the systems and structures that perpetuate injustice, inequality, and harm. It requires us to be willing to disrupt the comfort of the status quo in order to bring about real change. The problem with being good in a world that values conformity is that we may be tempted to prioritize fitting in over standing up for what is right. We may be reluctant to speak out against injustice or to challenge the prevailing norms for fear of being ostracized or criticized. But if we are to live truly moral lives, we must be willing to face these fears and take a stand. Being good is not just about following the rules, it is about questioning whether the rules themselves are just. Moreover, Challenging the status quo is essential if we are to create a better world. The systems and structures that govern our societies are not infallible, and they often reflect the biases, prejudices, and injustices of those in power. If we are to live in a world that is truly just, we must be willing to question these systems and work toward their reform. This requires more than just being good, it requires being bold, being courageous, and being willing to disrupt the status quo in the pursuit of justice. Ultimately, the importance of challenging the status quo lies in our commitment to living lives of integrity. True goodness requires us to go beyond mere conformity and to actively seek out opportunities to make a difference. This may mean standing up for the marginalized, speaking out against injustice, or advocating for systemic change. Whatever form it takes, challenging the status quo is essential if we are to live lives that are not only good but truly transformative. The call to sacrifice for the greater good. One of the most significant challenges of being good is the call to sacrifice. True goodness often requires us to give up something: our time, our resources, our comfort in the service of others. This is perhaps the most difficult aspect of living a moral life, as it demands that we put the needs of others before our own. Yet the problem with being good is that we may sometimes seek to avoid this call to sacrifice, preferring instead to live in a way that is convenient and comfortable. Sacrifice is at the heart of what it means to live a truly moral life. It is the willingness to give up something of value for the sake of a greater good. This may mean sacrificing our time to help those in need, sacrificing our resources to support a cause we believe in, or sacrificing our comfort to stand up for what is right. Whatever form it takes, sacrifice is essential if we are to live lives that are not only good but truly impactful. However, the call to sacrifice is often resisted. We may be tempted to do just enough to maintain our moral reputation without making any real sacrifices. We may volunteer occasionally, donate to charity, or help a neighbor in need, but these acts, while commendable, may not require us to stretch ourselves in ways that lead to real growth or transformation. In this way, we may avoid the deeper call to sacrifice that true goodness requires. Moreover, the call to sacrifice challenges us to think beyond ourselves. It asks us to consider the needs of others and to prioritize those needs over our own desires and comforts. This is no easy task, especially in a world that often encourages us to focus on our own happiness and success. But true goodness demands that we go beyond our own self-interest and seek to make a difference in the lives of others. This requires a willingness to give up something of value for the sake of a greater good. Ultimately, the call to sacrifice is about living a life of purpose and meaning. It is about recognizing that true goodness is not just about avoiding wrongdoing, but about actively seeking to make a positive impact on the world. This requires us to be willing to give up something of value for the sake of a greater good. Only by embracing this call to sacrifice can we live lives that are not only good but truly meaningful. The need for moral courage. Moral courage is the strength to do what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. It is the willingness to stand up for our values, to speak out against injustice, and to take action in the face of adversity. Yet the problem with being good is that it can sometimes lead us to avoid the challenges that require moral courage. We may be content to live in a way that is safe and comfortable, avoiding the risks and difficulties that come with standing up for what is right. Moral courage is essential if we are to live truly moral lives. It requires us to be willing to take risks, to face opposition, and to stand alone if necessary. This is no easy task, especially when the world around us rewards conformity and punishes those who dare to be different. But true goodness demands that we be willing to face these challenges and take a stand for what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. One of the most significant challenges of moral courage is the fear of rejection or criticism. We may be reluctant to speak out against injustice or to challenge the prevailing norms for fear of being ostracized or criticized. But if we are to live truly moral lives, we must be willing to face these fears and take a stand. Being good is not just about following the rules, it is about questioning whether the rules themselves are just. Moral courage is essential if we are to create a better world. The systems and structures that govern our societies are not infallible, and they often reflect the biases, prejudices, and injustices of those in power. If we are to live in a world that is truly just, we must be willing to question these systems and work toward their reform. This requires more than just being good, it requires being bold, being courageous, and being willing to disrupt the status quo in the pursuit of justice. Ultimately, the need for moral courage lies in our commitment to living lives of integrity. True goodness requires us to go beyond mere conformity and to actively seek out opportunities to make a difference. This may mean standing up for the marginalized, speaking out against injustice, or advocating for systemic change. Whatever form it takes, moral courage is essential if we are to live lives that are not only good but truly transformative. The balance between goodness and greatness. There is a delicate balance between goodness and greatness, one that is often overlooked in our pursuit of moral living. Goodness, with its emphasis on kindness, decency, and moral integrity, is essential to living a meaningful life. But greatness, with its focus on ambition, boldness, and the pursuit of excellence, is equally important. The problem with being good is that it can sometimes lead us to neglect the pursuit of greatness, content to live in a way that is safe and comfortable, rather than daring to strive for something more. Goodness and greatness are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they complement one another. True greatness is not just about personal success or achievement, it is about using our talents, skills, and resources to make a positive impact on the world. It is about striving for excellence in a way that is rooted in moral integrity and a commitment to doing what is right. But the problem with being good is that we may sometimes prioritize moral decency over bold ambition, failing to realize that true greatness requires both. The balance between goodness and greatness requires us to challenge ourselves in new ways. It asks us to go beyond the comfort of moral living and to push ourselves to achieve something more. This may mean taking risks, facing challenges, and striving for excellence in our personal and professional lives. But it also requires us to maintain our commitment to goodness, ensuring that our pursuit of greatness is always rooted in moral integrity. Moreover, the balance between goodness and greatness is essential if we are to make a lasting impact on the world. Goodness alone is not enough to create meaningful change. It requires the boldness and ambition of greatness. But greatness without goodness is hollow and self-serving. Only by balancing the two can we live lives that are both successful and morally impactful. Ultimately, the balance between goodness and greatness is about living a life of purpose and meaning. It is about recognizing that true success is not just about personal achievement, but about using our talents and resources to make a positive impact on the world. This requires us to strive for excellence in all that we do while maintaining our commitment to moral integrity and doing what is right. The temptation to settle for superficial goodness. Superficial goodness is one of the most pervasive problems with being good. It is the temptation to focus on outward appearances of morality while neglecting the deeper, more challenging aspects of living a truly moral life. We may be content to appear good in the eyes of others, performing acts of kindness or generosity for the sake of maintaining our reputation. But true goodness requires more than just outward appearances. It requires a commitment to moral integrity, even when no one is watching. Superficial goodness is often driven by the desire for approval or recognition. We may be tempted to do good deeds in order to be praised by others, rather than out of a genuine desire to help. This kind of goodness is shallow and self-serving, and it ultimately undermines the true purpose of living a moral life. True goodness is not about seeking approval or recognition. It is about doing what is right, even when it is difficult or inconvenient. One of the dangers of superficial goodness is that it can lead to a sense of complacency. We may feel that we are doing enough by performing outward acts of goodness without ever questioning whether we are truly living in accordance with our values. This complacency can prevent us from growing and developing the kind of character that is required to make a lasting impact on the world. It keeps us focused on appearances rather than on the deeper, more challenging work of living a truly moral life. Moreover, superficial goodness can lead to a kind of moral hypocrisy. We may be content to appear good in the eyes of others, while neglecting the areas of our lives that require real moral growth and transformation. This kind of hypocrisy is not only damaging to our own moral character, but also to the trust and credibility we have with others. True goodness requires us to be consistent in our actions, both in public and in private. Ultimately, the temptation to settle for superficial goodness is one that we must resist if we are to live truly moral lives. True goodness requires us to go beyond outward appearances and to commit ourselves to living in accordance with our values, even when no one is watching. This kind of goodness is not always easy or convenient, but it is essential if we are to live lives of integrity and make a lasting impact on the world. In the pursuit of holistic goodness. The pursuit of holistic goodness is the ultimate goal of living a moral life. It is the commitment to live in accordance with our values in every aspect of our lives, not just in certain areas. The problem with being good is that we may sometimes compartmentalize our morality, being good in one area of our lives while neglecting others. But true goodness requires us to be consistent in our actions, to live with integrity in all that we do. Holistic goodness is about living in alignment with our values in every aspect of our lives, our personal relationships, our professional lives, our community involvement, and our inner spiritual life. It requires us to be intentional about how we live, making choices that reflect our commitment to doing what is right. This kind of goodness is not about perfection, but about striving to live with integrity in all that we do. One of the challenges of pursuing holistic goodness is that it requires us to confront the areas of our lives where we may be falling short. We may be tempted to focus on the areas where we are doing well, while ignoring the areas that need improvement. But true goodness requires us to be honest with ourselves, to acknowledge our shortcomings, and to work toward growth and transformation in all aspects of our lives. Moreover, the pursuit of holistic goodness requires us to be mindful of the impact our actions have on others. It asks us to consider not only our own moral integrity, but also how our choices affect the people around us. This kind of goodness is not just about individual morality, but about creating a more just and compassionate world for all. It requires us to think beyond ourselves and to seek the greater good in all that we do. Ultimately, the pursuit of holistic goodness is about living a life of purpose and meaning. It is about recognizing that true goodness is not just about avoiding wrongdoing, but about actively seeking to make a positive impact on the world. This requires us to be consistent in our actions, to live with integrity in all that we do, and to strive for growth and transformation in every aspect of our lives. The true challenge of being good. Ladies and gentlemen, the true challenge of being good lies in recognizing that goodness is not a destination but a journey. It is not about achieving a certain level of moral decency and then resting on our laurels, but about continually striving to grow, to challenge ourselves, and to make a positive impact on the world around us. Being good is not just about following the rules or maintaining a moral reputation. It is about living with integrity, pursuing greatness, and embracing the call to sacrifice for the greater good. We must resist the temptation to settle for superficial or minimal goodness and instead pursue a holistic, transformative way of living that challenges the status quo and seeks justice for all. This journey is not always easy, but it is essential if we are to live lives that are not only good but truly meaningful. In the end, the true challenge of being good is not just about doing what is expected, but about daring to do what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular, or unpopular, or unpopular, or unpopular.